Welcome to the second presentation on algebra. So, the previous video we just dealt with some basic algebra such as like x plus 1 is equal to 4. Right now you can tell that if you subtract 1 from both sides you'll have x, because these will cancel out, and then you're left with 4 minus 1. 4 minus 1 is equal to 3. Okay? That was some basic algebra we did. Now let's get a little bit more tricky with multiplication. Now multiplication you should have learned prior to algebra, otherwise you won't really understand algebra well. Okay? So what multiplication is just a form of adding numbers. So let's add some numbers. So if you have 2 times 4, how about we just make it simple for now? Let's make it 2 times 3. Okay? And just so you know, the dot just means times. You could also write it as 2 times 3. But when you get into your advanced classes, you'll see it written as 2.3. Okay? So, 2 times 3. What does this mean? Well, you take this first number and add it the second number times. That might be a little tricky to understand. Let me explain a little further with examples. So you'd first take this first number right here, the 2. So you're left with 2 right here. And you add this number this many times. So you add 2 to itself 3 times. So you add another 2. And now you have 2 2's. Add another 2. Now you have 3 2's. That 2 looks messy. 3 2's. And just add it. So you first take the first 2. So where's the 2? Here's 2. Now let's add 2 to that. 1, 2. You have 4 now. So that's up until here. It's equal to 4. Now let's add another 2. 1, 2. So it's 6. And now you don't have any other 2's to add. So 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Do you see that? In case you didn't, let's do another practice problem. So let's say I gave you 2.4, or 2 times 4. It is equal to what? Well, you take the first number and add this number this many times. So you take 2 and add 2 4 times. So here's the first 2. Here's the second 2. Here's the third 2. And here's the fourth 2. Whoops, that was a 4. My mistake. 2. So we only have to add 4 2's. So this first 2 goes from here. Then you add this 2, which gets you to 4. Add another 2, 6. And then you add the last 2. So 1, 2. And you get 8. So 2 times 4 is equal to 8. Okay, 8. Okay? Let's do one more practice problem, okay? So let's say I gave you, let's say 2 times, let's just write it this way because this is another way of writing it. 2 times 5. So what's 2 times 5? So you take the first number, 2, and add 2 5 times. So there should be 5 2's at the end of this equal sign. So 2 plus 2 plus 2. How many 2's is that? 1, 2, 3 2's. So we have to add 2 more 2's. Plus 1 more 2. Plus 1 more 2. So there are 5 2's, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Good. So now we add them all together. So first, use this 2. Now let's add this 2. So you get 1, 2. And then let's add this 2. 1, 2. Now let's add this 2. 1, 2. And now let's add the last two. 1, 2. So the answer is 10. Okay? Do you notice the pattern? Well, look at this. If the first number stays the same, but the second number, the number you multiply it by, increases by 1, you add the first number one more time. Do you see that? Let's write this in an algebraic way. Okay? So if you add any number, let's call that number n. Okay? And we multiply it. We multiply it by another number. Let's call that number m. Okay? So that's equal to whatever n times n is. So it's equal to nm. When you get into advanced classes, you'll see things written like this. When you have letters representing numbers, then you won't have the dot or the times to mean times. Okay? So n times n is equal to nm. Okay? So now, what if I gave you the same n, but instead I multiplied it by a different number? Let's call that number b. What is this equal to? This is equal to n. Well, first let's say this before we do that. Let's say b is equal to m plus 1. Okay? So, this number, this b, is greater than m by one. So, this means the result of n times b is equal to n m plus another n plus one more n. This is a property of multiplication. So you can see that going on right here. Now let's go to division. Division now is just the opposite of multiplication. So what if I gave you 6 divided by 2? When you write divided by, you can write it in a fraction, or you can write it as 6 divided by 2. It doesn't matter, but just this way right here is a little too simple or too much for little kids. So when you get into advanced math, you'll write it as 6 over 2 in a fraction. Okay? So anyways, what's 6 divided by 2? Well, this is a 6, and you divide it into 2 groups. So you divide it by 2. So what's the answer? The answer will always be the remaining number here. So it's equal to 3. Got it? And another way of looking at it is this. Let's say you take 6 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? And you have to group them in even groups. That's what division is. You have to group it into even groups. So 2 even groups. So this group is one group. This is another group. They have the same number of circles in each group, so they're even. So really the answer is just how many circles are within each group. So in this example, there are 3 circles in each group, so the answer is 3. Okay? So now, how does this affect algebra? So algebra, like I said before, was just a way of finding numbers, missing numbers. So let's say I gave you x plus 1 is equal to 4. Like I did earlier, right here, when x plus 1 is equal to 4, you would subtract 1, so you're left with x is equal to 4 minus 1. What's 4 minus 1? Go for 4, take away 1, so it's 3. So x is equal to 3. There you go. So, what does multiplication and division have to do with it? Well, let's look at this. What if I gave you what if I gave you 2 times x is equal to 4? See that? 2 times x is equal to 4. So we have to find what number times 2 is equal to 4. Well, how do you do this? You would divide both sides by 2. Divide both sides by 2. Because when you divide a number by by the same number, it's going to always be equal to 1. That's something you should have learned prior to Algebra 1. Okay, so this would cancel. So you're left with x is equal to 4 divided by 2, which is 2. Okay? So x is equal to 2. Because 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And if you need to see it using the circle method, 1, 2, 3, 4, circle it into 2 even groups. So 1 and 2. They have the same number of circles in each group, so it's even. And the number of circles in each group is the answer. There are 2 in each group, so the answer is 2. Now let's just plug it back in just to make sure it's correct, okay? So if x is equal to 2, so then 2 times 2, because we're going back to the original equation right here. So this 2 multiplied by x, which is 2, so 2 times 2, is equal to 4. That's what the claim is. Is it true? Well, how do you do this? 2 times 2 is equal to 2. Add it one more time to have 2 2's, which is equal to what? Where is 2? Add another 2. 1, 2. So it's 4. So it works. And now let's do a quick one using division. So if I gave you, let's say I gave you x over 2 is equal to 6. Multiply both sides by 2. Because the opposite of division is multiplication, but when you do it to the one side, you have to do it to the other. So then these 2's cancel out, and so you're left with x is equal to 6 times 2. What's 6 times 2? It's 6 plus another 6, so there's 2 6's. 6 plus 6 is equal to what? Here's 6. Let's add 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 plus 6 is equal to 12. So 6 times 2 is equal to 12. See that? Now let's just make sure it's correct. So 12 divided by 2 is equal to 6. So use the circle method. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now let's just circle them up into 2 even groups. Here's 1 even group. Here's 1 even group. How many are in each group? 6. Each group has the same number, so it's even. So that works. That's using division.